Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Today, my very special guest is Mr. Dennis Schroader, who is the founder of the Price of Freedom Foundation. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well, and I thank you for having me on your show. It's an honor.
Thank you for coming on. It's an honor to have you on. I know you're a fellow vet. I wanted you to kind of give a little bio on you, and then we'll go into your awesome foundation and talk about that.
Super. All right. Well, I'll talk about my military background. I was born into a military family. My father was an enlisted man in the Navy, and I was born in a Navy hospital in Oakland, California in 1956. Um, went all over the place, mainly between California and Montana when he was in the Navy. Montana because when he would go to sea, mom wanted to be with family, and when I was in high school, entered the Sea Cadets. High school he retired, settled in Tacoma. I was in the Sea Cadets thinking I wanted to go Blue Water Navy. Got great grades in high school. My dad said, if you want to join as an officer. You'll have a better life. So I had great grades. They couldn't help me through college. I wanted to go to college. I applied for ROTC scholarships. Navy said, here's a scholarship. Army said, here's a scholarship. Navy said, there's a caveat. You have slightly defective color vision. Therefore, Blue Water Navy is out for you. You must be a Marine. And I was crushed.
Yeah.
So I decided when I was that I would go with the larger force, and I took the Army scholarship and served from 1978 to 2000. I was a medical service corps officer, and it was Cold War era primarily. I mean, we did have the first Gulf War that went on, and I tried to actually I was recruiting doctors during that time for the Army, and I called my assignments officer 3 times in the buildup, the 6-month buildup. They wouldn't take me. They said, no. You stay where you are. And so retired in 2000, settled in Tacoma, Washington, had a great job coming out of the service, lost the job. The company went bankrupt, and went without work, and did that a couple of different times, different things. 11 years after I had retired, the guy who took my place at my last job was who we stayed in touch with, became friends with, asked me if I wanted to come back. So I did a 2-year retiree recall from 2011 to 2013 up at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Got the job that brought me to Middle Tennessee, which is where I am now. And about 5 years ago, I started this Price of Freedom Foundation because I was glad that I was seeing better press for fellow veterans, and especially those who had suffered combat injuries and those who had died, than what I had grown up with around the Vietnam era. But it just bothered me that there were only a handful of people that basically the country knew, and the majority of people go forgotten. And I later discovered, after I had started the nonprofit, I was able to attend a teleconference where the guest speaker was a researcher from USU's, the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences, and they'd been doing these longitudinal studies on military survivor grief. And one of the key factors that he mentioned was that almost universally, a year to 2 years after that family suffers that loss, they have the sense that their loved one has been forgotten and that their sacrifice is no longer honored. And that is true even of those who have buildings or streets or bridges or something like that named after them. One of the Gold Star mothers that I spoke with before I got this organization started was telling me about her son who was lost at sea in the Gulf of Aden, and how they had a bridge named after him here in Franklin, Tennessee, but that nobody really knows her son, knew the great person that he was. And so that's the purpose of what I want to do with this, is to be able to tell not just the blurbs that we saw over Memorial Day weekend, not just even the extended ones, not even the ones that talk just about their military service, but to be able to tell the whole story.
Wow. This
And
this is a I'm sorry to interrupt, but that is why I wanted to have you on, because I thought that was a very noble and beautiful thing. I lost people,
yeah.
and their names are up there. And one of the things that I do every year is I make sure that I post and talk about him, and so that people
Mhm.
know he lived.
Right.
And whenever I get to Puerto Rico, I'll go to the gravesite and I'll
Hmm.
post it on, because I told him that I would never let him die.
Right.
I would let people would know that he gave his life in service to his country. He was
That's
like a little
awesome.
brother to me. So that to me, when I saw what you were doing, I was like, wow, wow, wow. Because it to me, I don't know if anybody in Puerto Rico is keeping Wilfredo's name alive.
Right.
I'm trying. I'm trying.
Right.
I'm trying not to ever let it die. But so I
I,
love
I
that.
would I would love to be able to work with you and his family to be able to do this, because I guess the thing that just strikes me is that our military, your experience, my experience is that the we represent embody the entirety of our nation in terms of the diversity of backgrounds, of cultures, of races, of beliefs. And that's not what people who have never served really know. They only know what they see on TV, what they get in the media. And in a larger sense, I want to provide an alternative narrative to say this is the truth. And our first story actually is of a sailor who, after 18 years of service in the U.S. Navy, was lost at sea off the deck of the USS Kitty Hawk in October of 1998. But when I say that, a lot of folks kind of get some kind of picture in mind. What they probably don't get in their mind is the fact that this man was born in the Philippines. He served time in the Philippine Army prior to joining the U.S. Navy at his father's behest to make a better life for himself and his future family, because he was single at that time. And that is actually what happened. He got married, he and his wife had 3 children. They were in Japan, stationed in Japan when he was lost, and of course, once the service member is lost, they only give the family a limited period of time before you got to go. You got to change your life, etc. So they settled in San Diego, and that's where they're at, and those are not the kinds of things that people think about. And with your friend from Puerto Rico, I've served alongside a lot of excellent officers and enlisted men that were from Puerto Rico, and I would love, love, love to be able to tell his story. And if their family doesn't want to participate, then the things that you've done to pay tribute to him, we'd love to be able to share those through our website and social media as well, because I think.
Unfortunately, thank you. No, and unfortunately, I never got to. So it was kind of the circumstances of what it happened.
Mhm.
It was the fault of the Navy and how they did things. And
Mhm.
so they made sure that I got no pictures. And when I tried to get a hold of them, they wouldn't allow me to get any addresses, anything. They took anything we ever owned. And I lost everything. I didn't even have I had a couple of pictures of him that I had taken in Singapore, because he was so
Mhm.
happy to be in checking out
Right.
Singapore. So, it was it kind of was a little bit of a bad experience, but it nonetheless, he lived. And I try to tell that story that I he came and had dinner with our family, and I
Mhm.
messed with him a lot, and we went and saw this and saw that, and
Right.
we were sailors, and
Right.
we messed around. But
I understand.
how do you like, what kind of formats do you put this? Do you like put this in a video, or how have you
Th-
decided to do
Okay,
this?
so basically what we want to do, I see us as doing 3 things. We are collecting the story, number 1. And the reason why we have to collect the story is because the only person who truly knows your life story is you. You know, once you or I are gone, lots of other people know pieces of the story, but you, to tell that story, you have to collect it. So we do a lot of research to find as many people as possible that will participate with us in collecting that story. Number two is to preserve it. And so we write a full book on that. And in fact,
Wow.
I think I sent you the link to where the book can be found. It's basically on all of the retail sites out there for online book sellers. But the reason I want it in a printed book is because I've been around long enough to have seen stuff that I was participating in back in the 99 2000 timeframe, that in the military, that had a lot of press coverage. And for years afterwards, when people would be talking to me about, well, what did you do during the service, I'd point to that. I would take them to the website and show the news article, etc. Today, I could not find it at all. For the last several years, I've actually, said, well, what about this? Well, it's not that it's disappeared, but you can't find it. And therefore, it's it's
It's
like, if you
somewhere.
can't find it, it's somewhere, but if you can't find it, it's worthless.
Right.
So we want the printed book because we still have printed materials that are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. So I want to be able to give this to the families and the friends of the fallen so that they have something that can be passed down to future generations. And we know it's it's old school, but it's proven.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so but the third is, we want to tell that story. We want to tell that story to as many people as possible. Well, yes, the books could do that to a degree, but let's face it, we are a video-centric world instead of a bibliocentric world, and that means video. So what we do when we are doing our research, when we do interviews with the people who knew the fallen, we will record those videos, or record those on video. I would prefer it, if possible, to do them in person, because I can get better quality video. And eventually we want to be able to tell these in some kind of documentary series. But doing video documentaries is far more expensive than producing a book. So we right now are, so when we produced this first book, we don't have the resources currently to produce the documentary. We have 44 hours worth of video between our interviews and the home movies that the family provided, and the copies of the services that the Navy provided for them, after his loss at sea. And so, that's what we do with all of our stories. We are basically collecting the materials in video that can be used to tell the story via video, when we have the ability to do so.
Yeah. That is that, and that is a wow. That is just amazing that put them in books and put it. What kind of research do you do when you're like name off one of your one of the ones that you've done that you've been working with, like the one you were mentioning it.
The
What did
one
that?
that's complete is so basically what I mean. I was blessed because I had this argument. Really, I had this argument with God. I don't know what you believe, but I've been a Christian
I
my
love Jesus
whole
Christ.
life, and it's like I had this idea that I percolated for years,
Mhm.
and I was using all kinds of excuses because I was employed full time, I was working, I was traveling 80-90% of the time. I didn't have any background or experience in doing anything other than military writing, which you and I both know it's going to put you
Mhm.
to sleep. It's not going to engage you. So
Right.
and I wasn't even thinking about doing video at the time. So, but I lost the job that brought me to Middle Tennessee, went away, and I was old enough to start drawing Social Security. And it was like, in my time of reflection and prayer, it says, you were complaining about not having time. Now you have all the time in the world.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well, all right, God, I get you. And I said, I'm going to just go out and do this. I'm going to talk to as many people as possible and pray that I get the people to me that have the skills to do what I can't do. So with this first story, I was connected through a mutual connection on LinkedIn to one of the surviving daughters. Also through her, she told me about this Air Force guy that had written a couple of books and might possibly be interested in being our writer. So talked with him. He was an Air Force Academy grad. He turns out he had been what I'm trying to say, a criminal investigator for the Air Force during his active duty time. He's now a military dependent. His wife is a clinical psychologist for the Air Force. He had written and published 2 books previously. So it was with him that we got both our writer and our researcher. So he taught me a lot about this process. So what we started with was we start with the family to say, okay, help us to identify the people that you know that knew your son, husband, brother, whatever that is. And we sort of build out a contact list, and we do the outreach to them to say, you know, we're doing this story. In this case, it was on machinist mate first class Alfonso Abdalemos. We're doing this story on Alfonso. I understand that you knew him. Would you be willing to help us by talking to us about him? And in most cases, people say yes. And then we'll ask them for copies of anything that helps to tell the story. So if they have photos, if they have letters, if they have, articles that he was written up, but we'll ask for copies. We don't want any originals. We don't want to take anything from them. And then we'll either do a Zoom meeting where we'll interview them, or we'll do it face to face and set up cameras and lights, etc.
Wow.
Then, as was the case with this first story, the issue was that his wife met him when he was already in the Navy. She knew that he had spent some time in the Philippine Army, but she didn't know him during that time. So she didn't have any input about what went on there or why he joined or anything like that. His parents had both passed. He has a brother and a sister that are still living, but they had been raised. His brother had actually been raised in a totally separate household from him, and his sister was like 8 years younger than him. So they really didn't, the family dynamics. Like my youngest sister, doesn't know anything about me, and I really don't know anything about her during those childhood years. So so we didn't have those prime source resources to go through. So what the author did, being that he was a researcher, a criminal investigator, that clicked in his mind, and so he did a bunch of research about what happened during the years that they knew that he had served in the Philippine Army based upon his age and when he joined the U.S. Navy, and what was the Philippine Army doing at that time? Why were they recruiting soldiers from that area? What were they engaged in? It was basically they were fighting insurrectionists. And so pulling from other sources that he could find, he built into the story, this is most likely what he was experiencing. These are the things, these are the, and so
I love
what that pointed out to me is that in all of these stories, there are going to be gaps, and there are going to be things that he brought into this that aren't typically discussed during an interview with a family member or a friend. So for example, it would be, let's say that, we were talking about a buddy that was you were assigned on a ship with, and you talked about a couple of places that you went to. Well, what else was going on at that time? What were the politics? What was the reason that the military was having you there? What might have influenced the course of events, not necessarily to their death, but just kind of to add the flavor of what was really happening. And that's the sort of thing that we need researchers to be able to do, to be able to go in and look around. Okay, we build a timeline of that person's life. They were here, they were here, they were here, they attended these schools. Let's find out about those, and let's find out if there's anybody that knew that person, from those times in those schools. The Navy was great because they have cruise books,
Yeah,
so the Army's not so great about that.
yeah, no.
But there are other resources that these researchers can use to try and do outreach to help us to find folks that can help to enrich and get a more complete story. And even lacking that, they can look at the geopolitical kinds of things that would add flavor and detail to their time at that location. So
I do that on my ancestry when I do like ancestry
Mhm.
stuff, and I'm big
Right.
into ancestry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking into those things. I tend to think about what was going on during that era.
Mm-hmm.
How important sugarcane was to the economy.
Right.
The different things, Spanish American War. When you get to
Mm-hmm.
that level, there's so many things that go into that. So I'm glad that you get that part of that story and weave it in there.
Right.
It's really interesting. Have you gotten, you were telling me that you got to speak to a lot of Gold Star parents. How do they respond to this, this project that this foundation?
I would say that, well, I'll give you an example. About 3 years ago, I was asked to participate on a Zoom call with a group of Gold Star mothers in the Pacific Northwest. And so I had, told them basically when I was given about 15 or 20 minutes to talk about what we're doing, etc. And I said, hey, I want this to be an open conversation. And um, it was a silence. And afterwards, it's like, okay, I had one mom who was crying because she says, I can't believe that somebody would want to do this for my son. Now, the other thing was that none of them have yet engaged with us to actually do it, because I also know that I'm asking them to open up some old wounds. And a lot of people are reticent to do that. And the ones that have are people who believe that holding it in is not going to be helping them to heal.
Yeah.
I'm working currently with a couple of other families, and one of them is a Gold Star mom whose son was in the Air Force, EOD technician, and he was killed by a bomb that they had gone over this. He and his team had gone over this area like 3 times with their bomb sniffing dog, their machines, etc., and they missed somehow. But she has, from the beginning, after the initial shock happened, she's been very vocal and open to talking about this, and she knows that this is helping her to deal with the grief of losing him. This was 10, 11 years ago. But a lot of people are just not in that same place. So I recognize that. And that's why we do not ever want somebody to feel like we are forcing them to do this. We want to show them that there is a benefit to them. The benefit is that they get that story completed. Because I know for certain that with Holly's talking about her son Danny, he got married, but he was only married for like 6 months prior to him deploying. So when I get to talk with his widow, she's going to have a very different picture of Danny than the mom has, and one that she still does not have, because they really didn't have time to get to know her, They didn't get a time to establish a bond in a relationship, and after his death, things got very contentious. So I know that what we can do is we can bring elements of that person's life story together to everybody, and it was true that everyone who we interviewed for the story that we've completed um, found out something new about their loved one that they didn't know before, because we were able
Well,
to bring a story from somebody else to somebody else, etc.
well,
So,
you can't see it from all angles, and then you
right.
experience different things like his widow, and
Hmm.
and as far as talking about it, that takes many years, sometimes
Yeah,
therapy, and sometimes people never get to it.
right,
It took a lot for me to get to the point where I can tell it like a story, like what happened was, kind of disconnect myself from it a little bit about what happened, because it was horrific, but
hmm,
it's definitely, I love what you're doing, and
thank
God
you.
bless you for that, brother. There's nothing better than a brother in arms who's trying to keep another brother, sister in arms alive. and,
Right,
and people will know that this person existed more than just, hey, they took a bullet in Afghanistan, you
right,
know
right.
and I love that you wanting to tell those stories. What is the biggest impediment that you're facing right now? What is the biggest need that your organization needs?
Well, we need resources. I mean, that's the bottom line. We get no government grants. We get no grants really from anybody at this point. I will say that I do have a couple of volunteers that are helping us, that we have some hope that we may be getting some sponsorships from some corporations. But we, like every other nonprofit that's out there, getting donors is vital. And most of the funds for the last 5 years have come out of my own pocket, so it limits me what I can do. I need volunteers. I definitely need researchers. I definitely need writers. I need more stories to tell. I actually, here in the Nashville area, I have met with uh, two different filmmakers that want to help us to take this and create a docuseries. But in order for us to pitch that to the studios, we need 9 to 10 stories that we can say these are the ones we're working on, because that would be like season one. And right now we only have 4. So we need some additional families that say yes, we want to be able to have our loved one's story told, and yes, we want to be able to work with you to do that. So volunteers, funders, and family stories to tell.
And
That
you were
that's
saying
that.
that you could use like a video editor type guy to put that
Well,
one
yes,
document
yes.
together.
Actually, the I've had quotes from a lot of different people who have been in the filmmaking industry. Everything from filmmakers themselves to producers to attorneys that do all this. Most all of them have said that if just general business planning, that you should count on costs being around $100 to $150,000 for every 1 hour episode that you produce. And of course, that means you got to have that money up front, or a funder to pay for that, with the hope that you've got a market for that later on that can return revenue to you. The lowest cost that we've been quoted for an independent filmmaker to take the videos that we've got for Machinist Mate Alfonso Abdel Amos is $30,000. That's the lowest cost we've had. So yes, if we've got somebody that knows, and a video editor by themselves, I have a couple of volunteers for that, but they've been extremely frustrated with me because I'm not a director. I'm not a filmmaker. I say, here's all these 44 hours. Here's the
Mhm.
book that we've created. I can't, I don't have the skill to go in and say, okay, we're going to take this clip from this interview with Josephine and that clip from this shipmate, and that's not my skill at all. And that's what the video editors need.
Oh, you
And
need a director.
we need a director. Exactly.
You need a director on that project. Yeah, there's that. That sounds daunting. If you guys want to know more, and I want to make sure I put this out there, if you guys want to know more about this foundation, you can go to the website. He is on Facebook as well. Should be on the screen right now.
It is. Yep.
And you
That's
guys
our
can
page.
it's got all the links right here. You can go and you can find out more about it here. Look, the Alfonso Abdal Amos story,
Yep.
that you were telling me about, and what they're doing, what they're trying to do, and ways you can help them. I hope that you find it in your heart, folks, that to kind of help or look into it, because these stories are we should, we always say never forget or always remember and stuff, and but we do, and we don't want to let these people, they're more than just what happened to them in a battlefield far away. They're more than that. And if we could help tell those stories, that would be amazing. Dennis, I can't tell you how rewarding this interview has been for me. I do appreciate you coming on, because I didn't even, when I found out that you weren't doing this, I was just struck by it. It is a beautiful thing. God bless you for doing that.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate you. I know your time is limited here, so I'll
I wanted to go ahead and give you a closing statement. I do apologize. I try to keep them around 30 because people go. Yeah, if I'll shut up and give you the mic to speak directly to my viewers.
All right. Thank you so very much, DV. I appreciate every one of you who's viewing, and certainly any level of support that you can give. Volunteers are vital, so we would love to hear from you. I mean, that's the bottom line. Is let us know that you were moved by this, and let us know how you want to be able to be a part of this. And because I can't do it all by myself, and we need a team. Hope you'll join us.
Wow, it sounds like you've been Superman by yourself, but definitely some support would be nice. So, well, Colonel, I thank you so much again for coming on, and thank you so much for your service. If I didn't tell you that, from one brother to another, can you stick around real quick?
I can.
Thank you.